to the World of Ability podcast network. My name is Emily Over, and I am a podcast engineer here. I'm excited to have another episode of the Ask Me Bridge show with Suzanne Plumley. So I pass it over to her to get started today.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Emily. I so appreciate it. Well, here's the interesting thing. Sometimes we have a podcast, sometimes we have a radio show. But I think no matter whether or not I have a guest here today, you'll get some great value each week if you come and listen to some of the things that I've discovered on my journey. But before we go there, let's go to our tagline with all the wonderful people out on the internet, on YouTube, that are explaining what autism and late diagnosis autism is. You don't need another Aspie woman telling you what it is. Instead, the mission here at the Aspie Bridge is to help those of you who feel stuck in a controlled box by family, by society, on this side of the bridge who feel victimized and ashamed of who you are, and helping you go across the bridge with the help of my bridge builders who you'll meet throughout the year. You met Lynn, she's one of them. You also met Linda, another one of my wonderful ones, and Sandra. There are so many women I can tell you that are ready. They're ready to help you go back into society confidently. Now, there are a number of you that are already there, and I want to congratulate you. And it's because of the fact that you didn't let conditions stop you that you were able to go over and pursue careers. I really love the fact that you've been strong and can do that. And I found my way across the bridge as well. We're here to help those women who do feel ashamed. They might have just gotten the biggest news of their life by being told that they're Aspie. Maybe they took a child to find out whether if they had an autism um, in their system. Well, let me put that better. Maybe they found out that one of their children was on the autistic spectrum, and they learned that they also too were. This is big news, and it's also hard after you've been through the schooling years to realize that some of your challenges were because you were experiencing some of the traits that are part of the autistic spectrum. So, with further ado, let me tell you that, of course, we've been going through the whole idea of going across the bridge to become part of the workforce in society. Now, some of you have found ways, creative ways, to employ yourself through crafts, through art, through all different means of getting into a position where you earn income. That's where my friend Lynn helped you understand how to manage the income. Others of you have decided that you didn't quite have the business you wanted, so you went into someone else's business. And both ways are appropriate. I want to congratulate those of you who have either found your niche and found your job to make an income, or those of you who have found organizations where you can be a part of them and you earn an income that way. So, now that you've earned an income, where are you going to live? Are you going to live with your parents? Are you going to live with your friends? Are you going to live with family? Or would you like to go and live on your own? In a couple of weeks, I will have Dr. Wendy come back and talk to you about what it means to become an independent liver. Can you go back into society and live in your own place? Or will you always need to live with other people? Well, I have a solution at the end of this podcast that will help you have a both and. Really? I mean, yes, we do need people around us. We do need people to help cheer us up when we're having a hard day and understand with compassion what a hard day looks like. And yet, I don't know if we always want to be under someone's watchful eye, as in the case of a parent or an organization. We'd like to be able to live independently, freely. So that's what today's program is about. What's the best form of housing for an Aspie woman? Now, some of you are married, But that doesn't mean you can't put some of these thought processes into place and really analyze whether or not you are living in the best location that is going to meet your needs the most. And what I mean by that is what kind of structure and what are the stimuli around you that determine whether or not this is a good fit for you or not. I mean, perhaps all along you've been feeling very uncomfortable with where you live. Here are some of the things that may go into your thought process of analyzing whether or not your current location is going to suit you best for your needs. And we are going to have growing needs, but we can conquer them. Remember, we're not disabled completely. We can do this. And I really hate the word disabled. We just have different challenges that other people may not have. So let me start out by telling you a story. In 7 years, I moved 5 times because I found that this was not the type of living environment that I wanted to live in. So I started out in a duplex. And I love the duplex. It was nice. It felt like a little tiny house. And that's where we'll end up. But let's go from here. It had its own bathroom, own bedroom, living room, kitchen. And I did not have to check in at night or check in the morning. And I was free to get up and do what I want. But I had a neighbor who moved in next door that made it rather challenging. And I'll tell you that story in a few moments. But the duplex where I first started 7 years ago was a great location, had a backyard, even had a garage for me. So it was a great place up until one factor. I'll tell you about that in a moment. After that, I moved into a single dwelling. Now, what happened with that single dwelling was the fact that the management didn't know how to take care of the property. So my needs were not being met there. I ended up staying there for a year before I moved into an apartment complex. When I was in the apartment complex, it had all the wonderful amenities I loved. It had a gym, it had a pool. My great friends lived there. I was in a two-bedroom apartment. It had all the space I needed and a little bit too much space. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But a little bit too much space for me. And eventually, because of certain things that went on, I found myself deciding at a crossroads that I wanted to go toward New England where my daughters were. And so I knew it wasn't going to be get up and leave from the apartment to go to New England. There had to be a middle step in there. And I needed to just also, I wanted to get through the winter in Texas before going up to the winter in New England. And if, for those of you who are very weather challenged like I am, that was a smart thing for me. The ironic thing was I didn't end up going back to New England because I decided that the location was not going to be suitable to my needs. I did not want to go back and shovel my car out after every snowstorm. That's an interesting part that we're going to come up to in a moment is the weather considerations. So I ended up finding a beautiful house for me. Now, my house choice may not be your house choice, but let me tell you that when you find a house that meets your needs, you're going to feel so peaceful, so calm, and that's what you're looking for. Now, it's not perfect, and there are no houses that are perfect, but when you can look at each of these next few items on my list of asking yourself these questions, it's going to come to help you analyze. So you're not just jumping from house to house to house, hoping it's going to fit. You're going to be able to start to say, okay, all of these boxes are checked off, which means that while it may not be a perfect location, it will be like 85% awesome. And I think that we need to let go of perfection. No place is going to be perfect. But if you can get the boxes checked off and you can find a place that really feels good in your heart, you're going to find that this is the place to go. So here I am in a house I really care about. It has 3 bedrooms, of which one of them is my office craft room. And for those of you who are Aspie crafters, you know what I mean. It's a great place to have just one room where you can close the door and go away when you don't want to see the creativity going on. But anyway, let's keep going from there. One of the things that I liked about this house was the affordability. It meant that I could use an investment, an inheritance, and I did not require a guarantor to sign on the line to say that they would cover my apartment, my house, on the rent should I default. That was a great thing. That meant a lot to me. It meant that I was independently able to manage my money for my rent. Remember those little buckets that Lynn was telling you about? Yes. That is where the first place you need to put your money is, can you afford, with the amount of money you make and any other subsidy, to put it into a rent? If you cannot do that without getting a guarantor, someone to co-sign. That's what guarantor means, co-signer. You can't do that without a co-signer. You need to keep looking for the affordability housing that you can do that with, because let me tell you that if you are constantly requiring money from another agency, that's not definitely independent living. And you really want to make sure, for your own peace of mind, for your own peace, just all over peace, that you're not relying on anyone else to give you the paycheck to make sure it makes the rent date. So affordability is first. Second is location. Well, now we talked about the weather. Are you a cold person? Do you like the rain? Do you like the heat? You need to consider the weather. What kind of weather do you want to deal with on a regular basis? Now, when I moved from New England down to Texas back in 2017, we left in this ice storm. No, thank you. No ice storms for me. Thank you very much. And I was tired of shoveling my car out to go to work. It was just not something I wanted. So, right then and there, I knew that the weather was not going to be good. I also know that rain is not something that I do well in. It really brings your energy down, or at least it brings my energy down when we have regular rain. I really love the power of the sunshine. And so, being here in Texas, for the majority, we've got more rain now, but for the majority of the time, the weather here in Texas has really suited me well. Does that mean I'll never live back in New England? Oh, when I have those grandchildren, you can bet I'll be there. But not for the whole year. And I'll tell you why soon. Anyway, let's go on to the next part, city or rural. Do you love to be out in the country where you can run miles without seeing too many people? Or do you prefer to be in the city where you can walk to your favorite restaurant, walk to a movie, walk here, walk there? Maybe you like the fact that you don't need a driver's license in order to get to all the favorite things you love to do. So, city or rural? Do you like to be among houses that are right next to each other? Or do you prefer to have the houses more spread out? These are all the things you need to consider. How close do you want your neighbors? As I told you with the neighbor in the duplex, every time my dog barked, she got mad at me. She threatened to call the police. Eventually had to move out of there because I didn't want her calling the police on my dog. I found out that that was just an excuse, but still, we need to be aware that when we live that close to someone, they may have a problem. And if you have an emotional support animal, you don't want to be stressed because the next door neighbor is going to call the police on the dog. Another thing I found in another duplex that I lived right before this house is that the person smoked and it came right through my vents. Smoking, um, some of the different types of cooking, such as curry. If you're living that close to someone, you may find that the smells are not something that you can handle. And while you don't want to ask your next door neighbor to please not use that, You just have to say, well, maybe this isn't the best housing for me. Maybe I need to be in a single dwelling where I don't have common walls or common vents that go through the to both homes. And that's a consideration. Are you very sensitive to the sense of people's food? For me, I don't like the smell of burnt toast or burnt popcorn, and whether it's in my house or on the other side of the wall, doesn't matter. We need to take into consideration our sensory, and that includes our ears, our nose, and our eyes. Let's go on to the next part. And that's where I say to you, apartment, duplex, or single dwelling. Well, now with the apartment, I found that people were banging on the common walls or dropping things, or they had children, young children. Now, I love children, but if they have young children that are running over your head on a regular basis, these are things you need to think about. One of the apartments, I had a little child that would be riding one of those ride-ons over my head. It sounded like someone was vacuuming all day long. I don't want to blame that child for doing that. That's a child. But yet it wasn't the right place for me. So I moved out of the um, apartment living, and I moved into a single dwelling. And these are the three things you need to think about. Apartment is multiple common walls and ceiling and floor, unless you get the first floor access, which I'll tell you about in a few moments. So you have multiple common walls in an apartment. You have one long common wall in a duplex, or in a single dwelling, you don't share any walls. And this was where I found I was the least stressed, was when I didn't have to worry about anyone else and they didn't have to worry about my animals. And that made me so much more peaceful. Noise factors. Oh boy. Well, now we can't control everybody who drives up and down our street. That's just not possible. But if you live on a main road where there are cars that go up and down the street all day, some of them are going to be loud. Some of them are going to be playing their bass loud. Is that what you can handle? Or do you prefer to be a little bit further out where you're not going to hear as many cars that are going to have those behaviors? Well, we know it's the driver that has the behavior, not the car, but anyway, um, you need to take that into consideration. Do you have people that live near you that play loud music with loud bass? I can't take that. That's something that bothers me. Now, I might have an occasional car that goes by with a loud bass, but that doesn't happen too often, and I can handle that. That's where that 85% house versus 15% imperfection. Yes, you do have to learn to deal with some of the uncomfortableness of living in an area. Another thing that I'm not crazy about is people litter around my house. Well, they're not purposely throwing litter on my yard, I don't think. But that's just some of the things you need to think about. If you're going to live close to town where people can walk by your house on a regular basis and you don't like litter, you need to take that into consideration. The next thing, are you near an airport? Are you near train tracks? Now, I happen to love both. Neither sound bothers me. And so I'm okay living by an airport. I'm okay by living by train tracks. And I love the sound of the train. But maybe you don't. Maybe you don't like the sound of an airplane or a train or a bus depot or any of these other forms of transportation that might be too close. You need to take that into consideration. What's around you that might be bothering you? And if there is something, you need to have a conversation if you're married, or make a decision if you're not married to find a dwelling that does not have those noise factors. Let's think. I had talked about neighbors. Do they have children? Do you like children? I love children, but I don't like them over my head. So I've learned that about myself. Do they have dogs barking? Do they have dogs that are constantly barking and driving you crazy? Is that a problem for you? Now, if you have your own dog and your dog barks and their dog barks, well, you can't really get upset with that because if you're both gonna have dogs that will bark occasionally, there's that 15% of allowing it to happen as long as it doesn't happen too much and peacefully talking to the neighbor and saying, how can we solve this? But if you don't have a dog and they have a dog that barks all night, I think you understand. Clumsy neighbors, do they constantly drop things on the floor or do they constantly knock against a common wall and not realize it? Well, if that's a sound that bothers you, you're going to have to realize that you may not want neighbors. You may want that single dwelling, or you may want to eliminate the number of neighbors you have. Highly critical neighbors. Remember that lady I told you about who barked, complained about my dog? Are you living near someone who's critical? Now, sometimes, and in the case of this lady who lived next to me in this first duplex, you can't control who moves in after you do. And that can be a sticky situation. Here you are, you found the place you love, but all of a sudden that place next door to you opens up and someone else moves in that is not as kind and considerate as the original person that you moved in next to. And now you have a new set of issues. You have to decide if you can stay there or not. And I know that's hard. It's hard. You just about get situated and comfortable, and then someone else moves in that's not to your liking, or they are not practicing appropriate etiquette where they're considerate of your needs. And there you have to decide, well, and I would even recommend before you get into that position, how much do I like to be next to someone who might complain? You may decide that a duplex is just not going to be your place and you need to find something that's going to be more conducive to your needs. All right, let's talk about the lights. Now, it may be a lot of fun to live near your favorite football park or football stadium or baseball stadium, but do you like that much lighting outside your windows? Is that something you can handle? Or maybe you are living in the pitch dark where there are no street lights at all. Is that something that makes you comfortable? Or maybe there are some all night lights on, such as a bar that's not too far from you. Lighting can be a big deal too. I like the fact that I live in a town where there are outdoor lights. I feel more secure. I feel like someone's actually gonna see if someone else is gonna be up on my property when I don't want them there, or I don't feel safe having them there. So I don't want pitch dark. I like to have some street lights outside. And okay, how about if you live in an apartment? What if the apartment is okay for you? Do you like to go down a dark hallway if you need to get outside in a hurry? I know I didn't, but maybe that's okay with you. These are all the decisions you need to have. And next thing, maintenance requirements. Are you a cleaner? Do you want the 3 bedroom, 2 bath house where you have to spend time cleaning? Or are you finding that just one bathroom is adequate? A small kitchen, a small bedroom. The more time, the larger the house you have, the more time you have to devote to the appropriate maintenance. Now, I've been very fortunate for me. Each time I found a place that I really liked, there was a garage. That would be considered a helpful maintenance item that you have because then you're storing some of your items on your own property versus a storage unit that you have to go to. So, garages can be considered a positive, not a negative, in many cases. But the number of bathrooms, that's a different story entirely. We need to make sure our bathrooms are clean and healthy. So if you don't want to clean one bathroom, you certainly don't want to clean three bathrooms. So you need to consider the size of the house that you're going to go into and whether or not you want to devote some time or a lot of time cleaning it. What about the yard? Are you responsible for mowing the yard? Are you willing to hire someone to cut it for you? I just happen to have a 14-year-old boy who will come and cut it for me. That's nice. Means I can enjoy a yard and yet still have the maintenance taken care of for me. And again, as I said with the garage, we have the storage for all of the extra stuff. So we don't feel like we're getting piled under by some of our special interest items. Now, for me, my special interest item are craft supplies. You may have different items, but you may not want to display them all. Maybe you can have a yearly and a quarterly display just so that you can enjoy them but not have them all out at the same time because again that's cleaning. Now let's look at the last part, accommodations and luxuries. Now when you are looking at the affordability, you also want to consider, are you paying for that swimming pool that's at the location you're living at? And does that increase your rent because there is a swimming pool, there is a gym, and all of these? Can you decide whether or not the pool and the gym are worth the price of the rent that you're going to be living in that apartment complex? Because remember, number one is affordability, not whether or not there's a swimming pool and a tennis court and a gym. You really want to make sure the affordability is the first factor. If you find that you are getting an apartment complex or getting a home that's less expensive than you intended, and they do have those amenities, great. So some of those are first floor access. Do you like to carry all your groceries up to the second or third floor? I know I didn't. I wanted to have first floor access. Do you want a garage? I did. Do you want a pool? How about being close to stores for walking to them? Or exercise trails? That would be wonderful. Or how about bodies of waters like lakes where you can go out swimming or kayaking? These are all considerations that you need to think about. Let's recap. First is affordability. Can you afford the dwelling that will make you comfortable and stress free and peaceful? If you can't afford it, your first source of stress is right there. Location is next. Is the weather conducive? Is the location going to serve your needs? Three, what kind of dwelling is going to meet your needs most? An apartment with multiple walls connecting, a duplex with one wall connecting, or a single dwelling where no walls are connecting? Noise factor. Look around. Go at the day, go at the night. See how much noise is generated by the location that you're considering. Go at night to see also if the lighting is too much. Are there lights at all? Do you like the pitch dark? Or do you like to have some safety? I like the safety idea. Next thing is neighbors. Who are your neighbors? Are your neighbors kind? Is there a weekly barbecue or a potluck that you would enjoy going to so you don't have to cook as often? That could be a positive thing for you. So really get to know your neighbors. Say hi, how are you? Do you like the neighborhood? Do you find it really kind of noisy or is it good? What kind of activities do you like to do together? If you're someone who likes to go outside and see other people, and everybody stays in the house, well, that's not going to be a neighborhood that's going to be conducive to socializing or helping you out if you have a problem. Many of you are like, well, when I go home, I don't want to be around people. That's fine. And that's where a single dwelling might be good for you is you can go into your own place. But if you're someone who wants a little bit of community where you can have people around you but not under your feet. That might be a consideration as well. We're all leading up to my dream idea of what I would love to create across the US and into Canada. We're allowed. We have some rules of where these places are going to be. But let me finish up with my recap first. Maintenance requirements. Can you keep up with some of the maintenance? Do you have to go and buy your own appliances? Washer dryer, is that convenient for you if you have a car or not? So you need to think of the maintenance requirements. Can you mow the lawn or find someone who will mow it for you? Do you have adequate storage so that you don't have to live among your stuff all the time? These are all the things. And the last one is accommodations. What kind of special features do you need to have? If you have a bike and you love bike riding and you're in the city and you don't like riding in the city, well, I think that explains everything, don't you think? So I hope that some of these lessons, well, not lessons, but checklists of how to consider the right home for you will help you the next time so you don't just jump from house to house hoping that it's going to meet your needs. You now have a list: affordability, location, structure, noise, lights, neighbors, maintenance needs, and accommodations luxuries. So, now that we've gone through that, I'd like to tell you about my dream. My dream is to have us all have tiny dwellings. Now, you're probably like, oh, I can't live in 125 square feet. No, no, no. It's which size you need. A tiny dwelling is up to 1,000 square feet of space. Maybe you need all 1,000, but maybe you are happy with 125 square feet. You need to know how much space you need. You need to know whether or not you can ideally live in a structure like that. I know for me, one bedroom, one bathroom, a space to do my crafts, and a living room and a kitchen, that's all I need. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could put a bunch of tiny houses in a community where we have a central community building house where we could get together for different meals or potlucks, and perhaps there's a grill there where we could have barbecues, and there might be a pool there where we can enjoy a nice way of sitting around the pool in the summer and enjoying our time. Maybe there's some other activities like a fire circle. These are some of the things that I would love to create so that you have your own space. You have your own house that meets your needs, whether it's 125 square feet or up to 1,000 square feet, depending on what your needs are. But if you go through the list of, we could help you find a way to create that right place so that when I do create land, and I have one other lady I'm going to introduce you to this month who has done just this. She has created the bird's nest. And what that is that's a community of women who get together, but they have their own special dwellings. How perfect that would be for each of us. And I will be reaching out to Robin to find out if she'll come on and speak to you about what's worked in her community. Now, I haven't let go of the idea of helping you out with the workplace. I'm just working to find the right people who will come on. So for now, we're going to talk about the different housing needs. And when Dr. Wendy comes on, she'll tell you what kind of things will allow you to live independently as an autistic woman and what things you need to be aware of. But for now, I want to say thank you for coming to the Ashby Bridge. If you have any questions on housing and want to hear about my checklist again, or would like a copy of my notes for today so you can go through the checklist the next time you're thinking about moving, I I'd love to send those to you. But for now, I'd like to say thank you for coming, and I hope you'll come again next week. Next week, we'll talk about some of the different communities that are available that you can already move into if you don't want to wait for my communities to get built up. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you about my dream is I'm going to have all different activities. So it's going to be an inclusive community where you can learn different skills so that you can get over this Aspie Bridge that much sooner. So I want to thank you for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.